For a long time, minimalism felt right to me. It felt like clarity, and I was in control. And therefore, it brought me peace. It gave me a sense of order when my world and my brain felt cluttered. And it brought structure when life felt very uncertain. And for many seasons, it truly served me. But something began to shift in the past year. I wasn't necessarily simplifying anymore. I was narrowing, not consciously and not intentionally, but very quietly. Something inside me was changing in a way that I didn't see at first. This video reflection, it is not a rejection of minimalism at all. However, it is a goodbye to what it once represented in my life. And I wanted to say hello to something more embodied and, as I called, more soulful. When I look back, I can see that my inner work has been changing for a long time. There was a period when everything felt like organizing, like I was organizing and structuring everything. Not just my home, but certainly my life, my thoughts, and my responsibilities. It definitely was about creating order so I could feel steadier in the world. Then that work deepened. I began excavating emotionally, looking at old patterns, certainly generational patterning, old stories, and ways I would protect myself. Then that moved into seasons of clearing, where I started letting go of what no longer belonged in me. Habits, beliefs, but old identities that had completed themselves. I was no longer that person. And now, something different is happening. And it has taken me a while to figure it out. So, I'm not trying to fix anything. And I'm not trying to refine myself. Instead, I'm noticing a desire for ease and comfort, both internally and externally. I believe I am integrating. It feels like I'm coming home to myself rather than constantly reshaping myself. And a few years ago, I literally did come home. I was living out of state, and I returned to my home state in the north from the warmer south. It has been an adjustment. Now, if you have watched my earlier video called Goodbye to Clutter, and I will link that in the comments box, you already saw part of this shift beginning. I removed the clutter, except the except the cat toys, and you may hear Fiona playing with the cat toy. So those have not been removed. But I did remove what no longer resonated with my energy. And I absolutely let go of the past with reverence. This was very necessary work. And clearing the space internally and externally has allowed something else to emerge. Perhaps a softer version of me, but I'm hoping it's a wiser version of me. I've always loved art-filled spaces. I have spent probably 2/3 of my career in the arts. And though I no longer work directly in the arts, I still collect art. So that is not going to change. But I have curated my art that I own. However, I have found myself longing for more softness in my home. And I really think it began when I needed a new couch. My beloved cats, Finnegan and Fiona, had destroyed the previous one. So I took almost a year to decide what I wanted. It wasn't necessarily an intellectual decision. It became very values-based. I wanted to purchase from an ethical company. I wanted furniture that would last decades. And I wanted something that would age well with life. And practically speaking, I also had to learn what fabric wouldn't become a cat scratching magnet. I did discover that cats usually don't love velvet. And Fiona's saying, "That's right, Mom." And so far, so good. They have not gone. They've not gone after the couch. Actually, it's a love seat with velvet. High performance velvet, I think they call it. But the detail that matters, it really wasn't about perfection. It was about living wisely inside real life. And another quiet shift happened alongside this. Now, I began moving from cool colors into warmer ones. And the cool colors I definitely morphed into when I lived in the South. But when I began finding myself being attracted to warmer colors, it felt like a return to part of myself that I had set aside when I was doing deep work and definitely soul excavation. Now I'm returning to that part of myself, but very, very differently. I feel like I'm embodying my soul. As you begin living with more awareness, everything starts to reflect you. Your relationships, your choices, and eventually your space. At some point, I realized my home could no longer function as an escape. I couldn't hide in aesthetic decisions the way I once could. And I couldn't organize my way out of what wanted to be felt. I suggest that part of our soul work is not to escape life, but to become friends with it. That means acknowledging what is present, what is true, and allowing our space to change as we change. The space began responding to who I actually was, not who I'd been trying to manage or present to the outside world. I felt I was becoming more authentic and honest in all areas of my life. I started noticing what felt nourishing, what felt constricting. My home began mirroring what I had released and what could now safely return. For a long time, many of us needed the no. We needed limits around overconsumption, excess, and distractions. This was very important and necessary work. But I'm going to suggest that when the soul is ready, a yes begins to emerge. It gives you permission in a way. It's not impulsive, and you're no longer indulging yourself. I have found the key is always manageability. Not how much you own or how little you own, but how well your life can breathe inside of what you've chosen. Our souls are always beckoning us toward truth, our truth. Not trends, not identities, not masks we put on, purely truth. At earlier stages of life, we often create safety externally through people we hang with, our routines, where we work, and even through how our homes look and feel. It's just developmental stages. But eventually, I have learned, as I hope I am wising up, safety begins to live inside of us. We move from needing safety in our environment to learning how to generate safety within ourselves. And I'm suggesting this is where the collective is evolving. Not away from beauty or care, but toward internal stability rather than external control. Now, minimalism once gave me clarity. Over time, it evolved into something deeper. It became all about manageability in my home, but in every area of my life. And it didn't happen automatically. It took real work and a lot of honest questioning. Why am I owning this? What does this represent in my life? I realized that moving forward and becoming a wiser one, I needed to do a deeper dive. Not just into my space, but into my entire life. I looked at what I owned, and definitely what owned me. That kind of honesty does change how you relate to everything. And eventually, the identity of being a minimalist no longer fit. Not because it was wrong, but because the soul had moved beyond the structure that once supported it. I have learned that the soul doesn't want to be curated, it wants to breathe. I didn't necessarily want more stuff. I wanted more warmth, more texture, more comfort, and in a much larger perspective, perhaps a better humanity. But I did not want excess, and I did not want clutter. I wanted a wiser life. So what have I added? Well, I actually have on order 2 chairs that match the couch, again from the same company, and velvet, because so far so good with the cats. And also I realized in ordering those 2 chairs, I thought about inviting people into my space. And I'm very, very protective of my space. But I'm like, 2 chairs, that would be 2 people. And maybe even 3 people because they own a love seat. I've ordered more lighting because I literally needed to lighten up, especially living in the north now and the gray winter. And I ordered some, again, from an ethical company, made out of recycled water bottles. I ordered some throw rugs that looks like orientals, but definitely pet friendly. Warming up. What has been emerging now feels less like a philosophy and more like listening. Listening to what nourishes my body, what softens my nervous system, and making sure it's honest to me. I found soulful choices are grounded. They're grounded. They're not impressive. They just fit for you. They come from presence rather than image. And this feels like the next chapter for me, and perhaps for you. This video reflection is really the first part of 2 parts. This first part has been about interchange, the quiet shift that happens within the soul. In the second part, I will explore how this inner shift begins to shape how we live in the world and how we relate to our environments, our communities, and kind of how we do our daily lives. So rather than approaching this as trends or predictions, I really want to stay rooted in awareness, although I am recognizing patterns across the collective, and I will share that. It is shifting to become less about what we own and more about how we belong. How we belong in every aspect of our lives and in the communities, in the countries, in the collective. So, this video isn't about rejecting minimalism. It is about honoring a season that completed itself and welcoming what's ready to grow next. So, goodbye to minimalism. Hello to Soulful choices. This video reflection is part of the Goodbye series here on the Wising Soul, a space, a sanctuary for wisdom, growth, and transformation. If you're new, you're welcome. If you've been here a while, thank you for returning. If this reflection resonated with you, please like, subscribe, or share it with somebody who may need it. My parting hope is that we are wising up together.